First up, we're going to treat this as its own separate thing. I know they talked about it a little bit at CinemaCon, but we're going to treat the Flash trailer as its own thing. So this Flash trailer, I'm conflicted because
Yeah.
the trailer is a good trailer for a DC event film, but I think it's a bad Flash trailer. And I put this on Twitter when I shared the trailer. I completely 100% understand that the marketing department for this movie really has a hard task ahead of them just with all the crap surrounding this movie. That being said, this movie is not a Michael Keaton Batman movie, or at least it shouldn't be. But from the first trailer and this one, I feel like the Flash is a minor character or a supporting character in the Flash movie. Now, it's tricky because I know some people will be like, this is just going to reboot everything. Yeah. But that was always the plan for this movie. Like, all those years ago, this movie's been stuck in development hell forever now. But the thing is, this Flash movie has always been a Flashpoint story, whether we wanted it to be or not. Like, even when they started working on this in, like, 2016 or 2017, it was supposed to be a Flashpoint that would kind of, quote-unquote, fix the problems that people had with the Snyderverse and kind of set things anew. And it would be a soft reboot, not a hard reboot. Whether or not Flashpoint is a good starting point, we can debate until we're blue in the face. I think Josh and I both agree that it's probably not the smartest place to start Barry's story. You lead up to that. Yeah. But it being like a world-ending time travel adventure has kind of always been the plan for this movie, because that's why no director has stayed on to this project very long, or why a writer hasn't stayed on for very long. It's been a revolving door, more so than the Uncharted movie, and that's saying something. You had why do I feel like Rick Famuyiwa, who did Mandalorian, was attached to this at one point, and then the guys that just did Dungeons and Dragons were attached to it at one point. I feel like there's somebody else besides Andy Muschietti before. We now have Andy Muschietti. We had a bunch of writers, so it's never been about one cohesive Flash story. Unfortunately, it's always been, how can we make this the biggest event possible? And at the end of the day, I've only really wanted a Flash story, but I get why the marketing is selling it as this way, because if you still check online, people didn't forget. People don't forget. People shouldn't forget of all the stuff that Ezra Miller has done. And during the actual panel, during the actual presentation, Peter Safran, who was there, James Gunn was probably doing off doing press tour stuff for Guardians 3. Peter Safran did say Ezra's a phenomenal talent to work with, but they did not specify whether or not they were bringing Ezra back for future projects, to which I'm just going, there's no chance in hell that you bring Ezra back. You just can't. You have to be as polite as possible about this presentation, but you got to walk that tightrope for this, because I'm sure they want this movie to do well, and they are putting this movie over super strong, like Roman Reigns 2015 levels of trying to put it over strong. It's just got to deliver. And so far, none of the trailers have wowed me, primarily because it just feels like an event movie for the sake of being an event movie.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that has always been its kind of downside of like, oh, cool. So we're just going to get like this Flashpoint paradox. All right, that's fun. Haven't really had much of interaction with Barry as the Flash in general, but sure, okay, yeah, let's go all the way to like one of the events in his history that like defines the entire universe. It's the trailer's fine, it's cool, it's got some fun shots, but like you said, if for a Flash trailer, you don't really see much of him. They haven't really offered an explanation in the trailer as far as why there's two Barrys, or why there's two Batmans, or why.
Well,
it's very.
We can kind of piece that together. I would think one Barry is the Barry of Michael Keaton's universe, and one Barry is probably the one that we already know. And the Batman thing, well, we've already met Ben Affleck's Batman before. he's already met Ezra Miller's Flash. So I think he goes, and instead of, it's going to be weird because in the Flashpoint, he goes back in time. If I get the sense in this one, he's going to a different universe entirely. Like he says in the trailer, I go to the one where my mom lives. Like, okay, so you're going to basically hijack some other Barry here.
Yeah.
It feels like they're just kind of revisiting DC's greatest hits type of thing of like bringing back Zod and getting little snippets of Supergirl, but not really fully wanting to commit to that of like showing everything with Supergirl. Also, maybe it's just me. I think Supergirl will not have as much of a presence in this movie as we think because a lot of the shots kind of seem like the end of the movie. Like they all kind of look like they're in the same location, which makes me think the marketing wasn't going to rely too heavily on Supergirl's presence, but now due to other circumstances, we need to evenly distribute the spotlight as off of just Barry alone, and now put it on Michael Keaton's Batman, who probably gets the most screen time of anybody in this trailer. Like the first 30 seconds of the trailer are dedicated to him monologuing, which, I mean, cool that Michael Keaton's back. He's aged really well, but at the same time, it's always felt like a weird thing to put him in this movie. I like his Batman fine, but he'll never be my favorite. At the same time, I understand that he is the favorite for a large generation of people, and I think Warner Brothers knows that, and that's why they're focusing so heavily on Michael Keaton, and the advertising is we need the older generations who aren't on social media and Twitter to know the bad things Ezra Miller did. We need the older generations to come out and support this movie because the younger generations might actually follow through on their boycott stuff or not be interested as they have been in other movies.
Yeah, and I can't, honestly, I wouldn't blame people if they weren't interested in this film with or without the Ezra stuff. I'm like you, not a big fan of like Michael Keaton's Batman's fine. Honestly, a lot of his quips, especially in this trailer, feel kind of forced. And while it's cool,
nuts.
it's like, yeah, let's get nuts is a cool line for the time that movie came out. But now it feels, if you don't have emotional attachment to that Batman, it feels like something akin to Martha. Like, why did you say that name? It's like, okay, cool, but like, what does that mean? What does that do for me? That being said, Michael Keaton's Batman looks stinking awesome in this movie. There's so much stuff that he does that is a lot of fun and really cool that I can't wait to see on screen. And I know like everybody that that's quote unquote seen this film has said that it is one of the best superhero films they've ever seen. This is also a bunch of, movie execs and, theater owners. So it's like
the ones that change their mind all the time, the ones that supposedly gave Batman versus Superman a standing ovation.
Yeah, it's like, okay, buddy, whatever you say there.